Hey guys, Doug the Michigan Piper coming to you from the Pipe Rest, and today I am smoking in my 221 Killarney Peterson a mixture of classic burley cake and I don't know what else, because I thought what I had in my tin was classic burley cake until I put more in my pipe and realized it was two different blends. So I have a blend of something. I have no idea what it is. I'm smoking it anyway. I had gotten one of those little round tins that you get at the pipe shows and whatnot, and I thought it had classic burley cake in it, and it didn't. So that's okay, because both blends I know are good. So but this is a VR, by the way, smoking or drinking in my Distinguished Gentleman coffee mug some mint medley tea. Didn't have a whole lot of time today, but I did have time to sneak down and grab a pipe. We've got fire department training tonight, so I wanted to do a VR to SmartieBob. And first off, Bob, thank you for finding a nice way, a respectful way of honoring 9/11. Seems like people are either forgetting about it or they're overdoing it, you know, and the stamping your feet and running around your fist in the air saying never forget is not the way to honor 9/11. And I think, you know, Bob told a story about what he was doing and where he was, and asked everybody else what they were doing with and whatnot to put it in the comments. But I figured, why not do a VR? So thanks, Bob. Thank you for that, for finding a good way to honor the day. So, to answer that, I was a pretty much brand new fireman. I was a year into being a fireman full time. And I worked at a pretty small firehouse. Matter of fact, it was just me and the chief. And I had a partner at another fire station on the other side of town. So I had a partner, but we didn't work in the same building. And every morning we come in at 8 o'clock, and by 9 o'clock, the chief said we could sit there and drink coffee, we can tell jokes, we can go over the day or whatever. But by 9 o'clock, he wanted us up and doing something. So, you know, the one thing that wasn't cool about it was at the time, we had all these old timers that came in. And normally when the old timers come in, it's kind of cool because you can listen to them tell the old stories and whatnot. However, the old timers we had at the time were all about spawning rumors. I mean, you could literally sit there and watch them create rumors that went around, and it was not good for the department. Caused a lot of problems. So I couldn't wait until that 9 o'clock so I could turn the TV off and go from there. And I don't remember if it was right at 9 or after, but anyway, I picked up the remote and I went to turn it off because he turned TV off. They all left. They finished their free coffee and off they go. I picked up the remote, and right as I went to hit the button to turn it off, I saw a fire in a building. And I think I was watching Fox. And so I'm like, I'll watch this for a little while. It was interesting, you know, try to figure out how they get to this fire and whatnot. And they're saying on the news that, you know, they think a small 2-seater Cessna hit the World Trade Center. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And there's talk about, you know, whether it was an accident or on purpose. And I called my buddies down at the city fire department, and I'm like, hey guys, you might want to watch this. It's kind of interesting, and, you know, figure out what you do in that kind of situation. Not that we had high rises. So as we watched, you know, we're sitting there just kind of like, it wasn't really that big of a deal. You know, it was like, oh, it's in New York, but still kind of interesting. And then as we're watching, they're talking about, we think this is a much bigger plane. Okay, well, that sucks. You know, that means a lot of people are dead. And sometime in there, and you got to remember, you know, today's generation doesn't realize that we didn't have all the forewarning that this was an attack. You know, this was just out of the blue, and we were almost untouchable. And as I'm watching this, all of a sudden you see something come flying through, and it's a jet. And it looked like a jet was flying around behind the other building. And I'm thinking, I didn't even think about it. It was like, okay, well, there's a jet flying by, not thinking that jets don't fly downtown New York. And this, of course, all happened in a split second, if you've ever seen a video. And that, you know, you see that plane go behind the building, and you see a fireball come out the other side. And you hear the announcer, the commentators like, oh my, was that another plane? You know, and then it all starts. And we're like, what just happened, right? Because you still don't want to believe that it's an attack. It's like, no, somebody attack us with planes? I mean, that was unheard of. That was, it wasn't. Now people grow up and it's like, oh yeah, they use planes on the World Trade Center. Back then, we weren't thinking of a plane for a weapon. And so it took probably 20 minutes. And now I'm pissed. I'm pissed because I can't be there to help. I'm pissed because somebody had the nerve to attack us. And then I realize, well, before that I should say, other rumors start coming in, and at one point they said the White House had been hit, and another point, they said they have a plane they can't hear from. I can't remember all the rumors that were popping up, and we're trying to make sense of this in our minds. And then I remember specifically thinking to myself, they're showing the one angle, specifically thinking to myself, everybody from that floor up is dead. I knew the amount of fuel that was in there. I knew what that fuel could do. I knew that heat all went up. And I even said it out loud. Everybody from that floor up is dead. Or is going to be dead. And it was about that time, as I'm thinking that, the other tower collapsed. And I can't remember what show it was. One of the shows did a good job of portraying it. Because I can't remember what show it was, but they just kept showing scene after scene after scene of people watching the TV, and it was dead silent. And that's what it was like when you were watching it, at least for me. Where that collapsed and you had no words. You just stared at it. Like no. Really? No. That building did not just fall down. And then once you kind of came, I came back to the realization, I started calling family members, hey, are you okay? Stay home. And I called my mom. She's in Indianapolis. I might get out of there. Do not be in a big city right now. Get out of there. Go home. Go home. Go home. We were just talking about this with my niece a couple weeks ago. Because she was, I think she was just a couple years old, if I remember right. And she was asking all these questions. In the franticness of trying to get a hold of each other, and I didn't have a cell phone. My family didn't have cell phones. So trying to get a hold of each other was just, it's not like it is now where, somebody's got their phone on them. You call them at home, you call them at work. That was your options. Spent the rest of the day watching the TV, just glued to the recliner. Usually it was like, oh, I got to do something. She's going to say something. Didn't matter. I didn't care. He didn't care. I think he was doing the same thing, calling family, making sure everybody's okay. And as a firefighter, the hard part was, listening to the commentators or the news anchors or whatever you want to call them guess at what the firefighters were doing. And at one point there was a shot after the towers had collapsed, and it was one of the first cameras that got back to ground zero. And you can hear this noise, I don't know how to describe it, but they kept saying, you know, you can hear the sirens, you know, it sounds like they're under rubble or whatever, and it wasn't sirens at all. We have alarms, we call them pass alarms, personal accountability, something alarm. We just call them pass alarms. But basically, they're alarms on our bodies that go off if it gets too hot or if you sit still. And I knew as a firefighter watching this, those weren't sirens. Those were air packs laying still. Now, was it air packs of dead firemen? I don't think so. I mean, you know, they were standing outside. I think it was just guys that had dropped their packs off their backs, you know, and it didn't take the time to shut them off or whatever. But, you know, that was eerie for me to know. And I'm talking to TV, I'm like, no, that's not sirens, it's air packs. And just watching that for days. I mean, there's nothing to do for days. Just like, all I want to do is watch this. I wanted to help so bad. I wanted to drive to New York, but I didn't have the money for it at the time. And by the time we got organized as a county, you know, they're saying, don't come down. Everybody and their brothers coming to New York to help out, and they were literally overloaded with people. They didn't know what to do with them. Matter of fact, we had one department next to us who was told not to come down. They went down anyway, and they got stuck directing traffic outside of town because they just didn't have anything to do with them. But that's what I was doing, Bob, and I think that for me, that's the way to honor a day like this. That's the day the way to respect it, you know. There are other ways, obviously, preparing and being ready, closing our border, or at least making it tougher. But anyway, we won't get into that. I do thank you, Bob. I thank you for bringing that up. So, guys, I won't ramble on too much more. But check out Bob's video. I'll try to leave a link down below. Thought it was a pretty cool idea. So, guys, I hope you're all doing well. And until next time, you take care.